This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
If you listen to this show every single day, number one, we sure appreciate you. Number two, have you noticed a trend in our business when you host talk shows, or perhaps in your industry, whatever you do for work, there's this thing you want to avoid. It's called a crutch. And you'll get broadcasters and talk show hosts relying on a crutch, and it's like a word or a phrase or even an interview strategy that they'll use time and time again. They go back to it all the time because they're comfortable doing it. And at Real Talkers, I'd like to open this episode of the show, grateful to have you here, by the way, with a confession. There's a bit of a crutch that I've been using over the past while. As a matter of fact, it started, I noticed this trend through the summer, and I open the show and I say something along the lines of, there's a lot going on right now. And it's because it's true. And I guess if I acknowledge and put it in front of you, if I confess that this crutch is actually helping me, in other words, acting as a crutch may do, helping me wrap my mind around our mandate, which is to cover the top stories, the stories that are most important to you, the real life stuff where the rubber's hitting the road, then maybe it's less of a liability for the show. Are you with me? Because the fact of the matter is, there's a ton going on. We've checked in with Supriya Dwivedi and Nick Taylor-Vasey this week already. We've talked about a Gaza peace deal struck in Egypt. We've talked about steps forward with the India-Canada relationship. We're talking, of course, keeping an eye on what's happening with Canada and China as our foreign affairs minister is there. There is an election looming on the 20th of October where city councils could see dramatic overhauls in a number of different Alberta communities. School boards, the trustees that are making a lot of these big decisions, budget and otherwise, could change as well. And of course, everything else. Not to mention the fact that 750,000 students in our home province of Alberta are still out of the classroom as more than 50,000 teachers are on strike. It's a lot, isn't it? And along the way, as we do our damnedest to cover these stories in fulsome fashion, to the degree that you would expect with a show like this, and to get the expert guests on, every once in a while it occurs to us, and sometimes it's because an audience member, a real talker just like you, points it out to us that maybe there's a pretty significant story that's been flying under the radar, a story that we haven't necessarily spent a ton of time talking about. And that's what today's episode is all about. In about 30 minutes from now, you're going to hear from Jason Leslie with the Alberta Chambers of Commerce. He's got his eye on Alberta business. We're going to pick up on that Carney conversation on nation-building projects and on exactly what's happening on the commerce side, on the business side. But as mentioned, on the 20th of October, coming up this next Monday, if you're listening to this show the week that we're doing it, Albertans will head to the polls, those of you that haven't already voted in advance ballots. And along with choosing your city councillor, the individual that you think will best represent your interests in your ward, and along with voting for whoever you'd like to be the mayor in your city or your town, you're going to be selecting a school trustee. You're going to be voting on who you'd like to be representing you and your perspectives as big decisions are made relating to Alberta education. You could argue that the temperature in the conversation around Alberta education hasn't been this hot in decades, and that's not hyperbole. That's just real life. There's a lot going on right now. We're hearing from experts, one from Athabasca University just the other day, a labor expert who said to us this relationship between Alberta's teachers and the province has been polluted, my word, not his, for 20 plus years since the teachers were last on strike in 2002. And even before that, through the Ralph Klein cuts and the like. But we've not spent a ton of time taking a look at those trustee elections. Number one, because it's difficult when you're talking to folks that are running and seeking positions from an equitable standpoint. You want to make sure that you're talking to everybody else that they're running against, and logistically, it becomes very difficult. And also, at the end of the day, your attention span only goes so far. But the fact is, there are pressing issues that demand to be discussed, and that's where we'll go today in a special pre-election edition of the Real Talk Roundtable. It's an Alberta Education edition, and so we've reached out to three heavy hitters. We wanted representation from across the province, ideally Alberta's two biggest cities. We wanted a rural voice on that panel, and that's exactly what we've got today. In our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West, it's my pleasure to welcome to our studio in the historic Mercer Warehouse in downtown Edmonton, the chair of the Edmonton Public School Board, Julie Kusiek. It's nice to see you. Thanks for making time for us today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And we want to welcome in two of your colleagues, so to speak, as well. The trustee with the Calgary Board of Education. She's the president of the Alberta School Boards Association, Marilyn Dennis, joining us, and Tammy Henkel, who's a director with the Alberta School Board Association, also vice chair of the High Prairie School Division. Marilyn, Tammy, thanks so much for making time for us this morning as well. It's good to see your faces.
Good morning. Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely.
Good morning.
Marilyn, president of the Alberta School Boards Association, I want to acknowledge something, and actually, why don't I just hand it over to you, and you can clarify. We don't have three voices on this panel today that are directly involved in negotiations between the teachers and the province. That's not something that trustees or board chairs or for that matter, the Alberta School Boards Association has as part of its mandate. But safe to say, this strike, now midway through week 2, is something that's impacting everybody, including you. Where's your head at today?
Sure. And you're correct in saying that the Alberta School Boards Association and individual trustees are not, directly involved in negotiations. There really is a conversation between government and the ATA through TIBA. We're certainly grateful for the work that's ongoing with TIBA. As school boards, we trust the process and hope for a swift resolution that will see students coming back into school sooner rather than later. I don't think anybody wanted a strike at the beginning of this. And we would certainly hope that, like I say, a swift resolution would be found that would see students back in school soon.
Tammy, give us a report from your neck of the woods in High Prairie. How is the strike impacting the community? What are you seeing firsthand?
The biggest struggle that we have with the strike, in all honesty, is just the fact that we're concerned for our students and the fact that we need them back in school. It's really important for our kids to not have any interruptions. We know the struggles that happened through COVID and instruction interruptions in learning, and we just really would like to see them back. That is our goal. It's really hard for our parents up here in Northern Alberta when they're trying to juggle all of these things, including their kids not being in school.
Yeah, well said. Julie, here in Alberta's capital city, you and I have known each other for a long time. You're chair of the board, sure. I also happen to know you're a very busy mom in real life. How are you managing this strike? How is this landing in your lap?
Well, Ryan, when I left my house this morning to come to the studio, I had 4 snoozing children at home. So
still sleeping.
Hopefully they'll be getting up soon. They're getting lazier and lazier by the day. But, not to criticize my children, they're also doing a good job at practicing their reading and math as well. But anyhow, it's interesting. I was actually a high school student in the last strike that happened. And I remember feeling that stress as a student. It was my grade 12 year. What's going to happen with my diplomas? At that time, they were 50% of our mark. What's this going to mean for my future? But remember getting out there with my teachers and rah on that. And, we all caught up. We all did fine. And so I am, my message to parents who are maybe similarly worried right now, or even students that are worried right now, you know what, I'm confident that when we get back into the classroom and all of this is resolved, that, your teachers are going to do a good job of getting you back up to snuff, and you'll be just fine.
Can you, I'd ask the three of you, Marilyn, maybe we'll swing back to you as current president of the Alberta School Boards Association, but what role would the ASBA, or what role would trustees play on the heels of a strike? I'm just to be fair, and I'll just let the audience know, I'm not going to put the three of you in tough positions where you can't comment on things. I'm not going to ask you to speculate on whether or not teachers are going to be ordered back to the classroom. On the record, I absolutely believe that teachers will be ordered back to the classroom, and I think that that's probably going to happen within the next couple of weeks at the most. But what role would the ASBA or trustees play in all of this, including maybe equipping or empowering teachers and schools to help with that catch-up that Julie just laid out?
Mm-hmm. Well, certainly, the Alberta School Boards Association really focuses on supporting school boards and individual trustees in being able to expand their governance capabilities. We do that through a number of different ways, through PD sessions, through sharing information about legislation, hot topics that maybe are happening and discussions that are happening within the province. Overall, the role of trustee doesn't change depending on the issue that is at hand. School board trustees are elected by their public as governors of the education system. Now, the conversations may change, but overall, trustees' primary focus, by virtue of the Education Act, frankly, is on student results. And so there may be some discussion around, do we need to allocate budget dollars differently in order to help with some catch up, right? If students are away from the classroom for too long. There may be some conversation there, but ultimately, the school board's focus needs to be on governance and it needs to be on student results. And so, like I say, that will be what school board trustees will be looking for, is that what impact has a strike had, depending on how long it is, and what do we need to do to ensure that students are well supported to catch up.
So, Julie, I guess you're going to have a vested interest in this, though. Like Marilyn says, I mean, a lot of this is budgets and budgeting. We had Jason Schilling in, president of the Alberta Teachers Association, obviously a separate organization representing somewhat of a different interest, but same context. And he's telling us, teachers obviously, have salaries front of mind, but he says a lot of this is classroom resources. A lot of this is class sizes. A lot of these are programs and class complexities, as he's referring to them. Are these the types of issues, class sizes? If you're concerned about outcomes, that has to be something that's been all over your radar through this last term and maybe even longer.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, one of the things that we're seeing at Edmonton Public Schools is just unprecedented student enrollment growth. So over the past number of years, we've seen about 5,000 additional students each and every year. And within that rise of student enrollment growth, we're actually seeing a steeper curve in the number of students who require specialized learning support. So whether that's English language learners, whether that's kids with certain diagnoses or a learning disability, whatever it is. And so we are seeing an increase in classroom complexity, and we are seeing an increase in class sizes, particularly as when I started as a trustee in 2021, we had one school in Edmonton Public Schools approved for construction by the province. Now we have 13, right? And we need about 50. So that tells
50 new schools.
Yes.
Just in Edmonton, you're saying?
Just Edmonton Public.
Right.
And so that tells you that even where we may have a large class in a school, even if we had the money to hire another teacher in that school, there may not be an empty classroom, right? So there's all of these factors that come to play all at the same time. So additional funds for operations, but also it does take time to build new schools.
Tammy, is it the same? I mean, when we're talking about some of the issues, not just the issues that have sort of like prompted this strike, or not even the issues that'll be front of mind for trustees and those campaigning to be school board trustees that are knocking on doors right now, looking to get their names out there. Do you find that a lot of the public discourse in the province is centered around the so-called urban issues? Like, do the rural issues hold? Are they consistent? Is your division dealing with the same thing, or is it a completely different list?
Interestingly enough, it's not a different list. It's a different prioritization of the list. Smaller school divisions where you're seeing either stagnant growth or declining enrollment probably aren't talking about class size in the same way. And challenges related to class size might not be as much around the size of the class in higher numbers as combined classes where the teacher is teaching a grade 3-4 split. The other thing to recognize is that school divisions, regardless of the size, are facing the same complexity issues. I don't have a lot of English language learners in my school division, but they exist. But the other complexities are where we're facing diagnoses where they need care from outside services, speech pathologists, occupational therapists. All of those things are very common to every school board across the division or the province. We're all talking about it as divisions, and it just is a little bit different in its context, but those issues are consistent across the province. The only thing that I would say is sometimes it's a lot harder to get the people we need in the rural communities that are far more isolated and away from major centers. So.
What is the strategy there, Tammy? When it comes, we've had this conversation a lot on healthcare, on recruiting or retaining rural doctors, in particular family physicians. But we haven't. I'll be honest with you, talked a lot about recruiting rural teachers. I guess provinces have been doing it for more than 100 years, trying to figure out ways. And I guess for some people, it's probably a pretty appealing lifestyle. That old one-room schoolhouse, we think about it. But what's the 2025 model of recruiting, the talented young, class of 2025 graduating out of these schools of education?
Well, we are facing the same challenge in education in rural Alberta as we are in the healthcare field. And our goal is to promote the great things that happen in rural school divisions and the interesting things that we're able to provide that may not be able to provide in the larger metro areas. We've got a vertical farm. Our green certificates around education related to farming and forestry and all of those things are excellent opportunities that we may not see in some of the larger centers, Edmonton, Calgary, and those things. So part of what we celebrate when we're trying to attract teachers is really just all of the great things. I live near one of the largest lakes in the province. We have great hunting, fishing. You can skidoo almost anywhere here. So there's so many great things about rural Alberta, but it's an adventure for a lot of people who haven't been exposed to what rural Alberta really is. I love it, but you've got to be brave enough to take the adventure.
Yeah, 100%. Hey, I always feel like for those that know, they know, and you don't need to explain it to them. And probably the same thing for folks that love the idea of being in the big city. Marilyn, how has the strategy been similar in Calgary? And I mean, Calgary, gosh, we just had our on the 10th of October, our Real Talk Calgary mayoral debate. And the recurring theme on this is that this dynamic city, my hometown, by the way, is forecasted to add, as if I need to tell you this, 80 to 100,000 new citizens every year over the next 10 years. I mean, how does a school board or these elected trustees, how do you even try to plan around that, in particular with budget constraints? I would imagine you've got a long wish list.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. First, just as a sidebar, thanks for doing that show with the top 5 mayor candidates for Calgary. I'm almost through that episode, so
good. Don't tell us who you're voting for. Not that you would, but has it helped shaped your opinion? That's the music to our ears.
It's the information is really helpful.
Good.
So I'll say that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to finishing that episode, but. No, certainly in Calgary, similar to what Julie said about Edmonton, the growth is spectacular. And with that comes some complexity. Certainly space matters. For the Calgary Board of Education, we have a replacement school and 15 new schools that have already received partial funding from the government of Alberta. And so we hope to see, those being built within the next, maybe 3 to 7 years. We can hardly build schools fast enough. We have, dozens of other schools that we're requesting in Calgary because the growth has really been spectacular. And we do need space. If we want to talk about, class size, and we want to talk about, how to, better support some of the complexity, we need space. And so just the Calgary Board of Education actually just this week submitted as part of our modular program a request for over 60 modular units to be added to schools, trying to create space as quickly as possible for 1,600 students. So space matters. An increase in base funding would be very helpful. That additional operational funding is critical to be able to continue to support the growing number of students that we have. And in Calgary, we have an incredible number of students who are English as an additional language learners. They're about a third of our population at the CBE are EAL students. Over 44,000 students are EAL. And, that's, and then, beyond that, other, diagnosed learning challenges that we need to support in our schools.
I want to open this up to the three of you, and we like to jump into our Real Talk live chat powered by Park Power through these interviews. And obviously, Real Talkers have a lot to say about this. Some comments on, a statement made by Alberta's Premier recently. We'll get to that. Semper Fi Danny with an interesting one says, my question for these trustees, given the challenges facing teachers regarding the complex needs of students, do we need to return to a special ed class model for students with more significant needs? Julie, what would you say?
Yeah, I think it's an excellent question, and certainly what's on the minds of a lot of people. And so I do think the approach that Edmonton Public takes is a really good one, and one that I hope that we can continue to offer and to expand over time. And so what that looks like is if you're a student with specialized learning needs, the family, the school will get together. If the best learning environment for you is in a regular community classroom setting with some additional supports, that's where you can register. If you actually, as a student, would do better in one of our specialized programs, maybe our strategies program or our interactions program, if you're a student diagnosed with autism, you can go ahead and register for that program, which is its own classroom within a community school setting. And what's great about that is then there's maybe whole school events, there might be pairings that teachers from different classes will do, so you still get that whole school community feel, but your learning is with students that maybe have similar learning needs as you. And then we go one step further as well, and we've got other fantastic offerings, such as what's offered at LY Karen School. It's all for students with learning disabilities, and the magic that happens there is just incredible. Kids come there and they're encouraged every single day. What are you going to do? How are you going to push yourself? And they're it's just, there's some real encouragement that happens there. When I go to their graduation, you talk to these kids, and they're so proud of the job that they're going to get at Sobeys afterwards. A few of them may be registered at Olds College for the horticulture program or whatever it is. And these are kids that were falling through the cracks before, potentially. And so one of the other things our school division is exploring that we've just put onto our capital request list to the province is funding to construct an autism center of excellence, right? So that we have yet another option for families who are looking for that kind of support for their student. And so I do think that there is some really great choice within the public education system, and I think it's important that we continue to fund that provincially, both in terms of operational dollars and construction dollars, and that families are able to choose that within the public system.
Okay, we've kept this relatively apolitical, but the fact of the matter is, trustees seek elected office, and politics are all over the job mandate. So I want to get into that. We've got more comments coming in on our live chat. I want to get a little bit personal as well. I've seen school trustees getting absolutely piled on over the past while, and I want to ask these three about that and what it's like. To be quite honest with you, friends, you couldn't pay me enough to do this job, considering the expectations. Julie's laughing. I'm not joking. The expectations, the abuse that you guys take, and I want to get to it. And it's not limited to one side. As a matter of fact, I'm seeing abuse across the spectrum. You guys remember, Real Talkers, when David Parker joined me here on the show? This is the founder of Take Back Alberta. This was back on August 21st of 2023. Hard to believe that was already 2 years ago, but he basically plainly stated on this show, on Real Talk, that they were coming for Alberta school boards. They were going to take over the school boards and eliminated all mystery around it. And then with that, it seemed deepened this sense of polarization, where I think that if I'm going to boil this down to the right and the left, they've been growing further apart, and it's obviously going to come to a head, I think, on Election Day, or at least we'll see. I'm going to go there with these three joining us, and I'm grateful to have them. Julie Kusiek, Marilyn Dennis, and Tammy Henkel. Of course, you can have your say either live during our interviews or later after you've listened to them. You put some thought into it. Send us an email anytime to talk@ryanjesperson.com.
Edmonton is here because the river is here. So we care for it, protect it, share it. The water of the North Saskatchewan sustains all of us. It's a big job to treat and deliver it, river to tap, to over 1 million people, so you can have and enjoy a glass of the Sask. On tap, made local by Epcor.
Real Talkers, did you check out our most recent episode of the show? How fun was this? We started off talking politics with Nick Taylor-Vasey, and then on the back nine of the episode, we're joined by a couple of incredible directors and the festival director at Northwest Fear Fest. That's right, Guy Lavallee bringing in a couple creative talents to talk about the Rocky Horror Picture Show, Strange Journey, a documentary commemorating the 50th anniversary of that iconic film. Of course, we're also taking a look at Night of the Reaper and Body Cam. That'll be closing night at Northwest Fear Fest, which is now officially underway. We want to make sure you know about it. That's northwestfest.ca/fearfest for the next 4 days. Everyone deserves a good scare. Treat yourself to the theater experience in the iconic Metro Cinema at the Garneau. You can get your tickets today. And if you happen to support Real Talk on Patreon, if you're a Real Deal or Real VIP YouTube channel member, make sure you check the messages. We sent those out yesterday with your instructions to grab that double pass to a night out at the movies at Northwest Fear Fest. Friesen Brothers has you covered this holiday season, whether it's Halloween you're looking forward to, whether you're still reveling and maybe even enjoying leftovers from their Thanksgiving dinner box, or of course as you start to think about hosting your family and friends through those winter months, consider Friesen Brothers premium smoked meats, including the peach and Prosecco glazed gammon ham. They've got the whole smoked spatchcock turkey and a whole lot more. Give thanks without the stress through the holiday months. These are crafted for your table, and of course nobody does butchery like the team at Friesen Brothers. That whole smoked Alberta brisket will blow your mind. You can order today anytime the premium smoked meats from Friesen Brothers at cateringbyfriesen.com. They've got Oktoberfest festivities happening, and of course November 1st will be your next chance to knock 15% off all grocery purchases of $75 or more. California Closets, ready to get you started on getting serious about making the most of your space with their custom organizational systems. Whether it's overhauling your garage, maybe adding a stunning new entertainment center to your family room where everybody gathers, or maybe it's a walk-in closet, the one you've always dreamed of as a special treat to yourself. Everything that California Closets does is manufactured in Alberta. This is a Canadian-owned and operating company, and everything they install is guaranteed for life. If you think, there's no way I can afford California Closets, think again. You can check out their website, californiaclosets.ca, for details on how they can fit your space and your budget. It starts with a free consultation at californiaclosets.ca. And if you're a business owner, chances are financial management, financial prudence, making the right moves is on your mind. That's what it's all about. If you're an established professional, if you're a business owner, asking questions like, whether you should pay yourself in dividends or salary, or if you should put savings into a TFSA or an RSP, or leave the money in your corporation for your retirement, the team at North Road Investment Council would love to start a conversation with you about this IPP. That's an individual pension plan. If your business is earning more than $200,000 annually, if you're over the age of 40, this could be a great fit for you. Your current wealth advisor may not even be mentioning it, but it's not for everybody. And that's why North Road Investment Council wants to talk to you about it. They have a plain language white paper they'd love to send you. You can contact Marshall and Carrie and the team at North Road Investment Council today by visiting their website at northroadic.com. Got a great question here from Michael, who's watching us live as we're talking. This is a Real Talk Alberta Education Roundtable. There's a lot happening. There's that crutch again. There's a lot going on, and that's why we've tapped these three on the shoulder. Julie Kusiek speaking obviously for herself, but she is chair of the Edmonton Public School Board. Marilyn Dennis, a trustee down in Calgary Board of Education and president of the Alberta School Boards Association. And Tammy Henkel, our voice out of High Prairie today, vice chair at the High Prairie School Division and a director with ASBA. Michael wants to know what kind of leadership did you play in your community that led you to this place to be chairing the Edmonton Public Board? I'm going to ask your colleagues that in a second. I love that question. It's kind of personal. What leadership roles did you play that led you to here? How did you become a trustee in the first place?
All right. So prior to running for election in 2021, I had, if that's the question, I'm not sure how far you want to go back.
I always like asking people, like, how'd you wind up here? Like, why are you doing it?
Yeah. So first off, I do have 4 children, all who attend Edmonton Public Schools. This is highly relevant to our life right now. I've always really loved education, been a big supporter of public program services and infrastructure. As you would know, back before Real Talk days, we had a great conversation around an initiative I started around the city budget, actually, called Thrive YEG, which sought to gather the stories of people who really valued public services and sort of encouraged council to think about how using city budget to invest in public services really increase the quality of life for citizens. In addition to that, my background's in political science, really have loved looking at, my undergrad looked at the democratic deficit in Canadian federal politics. And basically it's about this relationship between the elected official and the constituents. And you really need to make sure that's strong. My master's looked at youth engagement in local communities, the importance of age-integrated activities. These are all things that are really important, and they come together in public education, right? Advocacy around recreation centers. Let's get kids busy. Let's get different people within the community able to access these things. That's really important. Walking, biking places, all of that's really important. And so I'm here because I just really believe in the value of public education to bring everybody together. Doesn't matter whether you're a kid born to a family with a lot of means, a little means, or you're brand new here trying to find your way in Edmonton. It's just really important and something I want to be there to help make sure that our kids get the results that are going to help them reach their dreams in life.
You got a little choked up there at the end. I can tell it's personal for you.
Yeah, totally.
It's obvious.
Yeah.
Tammy, what drew you to it? Why sign up for this? I know that it wasn't the glamour. I know that it wasn't the public recognition. And no offense, I know that it wasn't the salary. So why'd you sign up to do it?
So not unlike Marilyn and Julie, in my instance, my mom, myself, and my 3 daughters all went to the same school division, which is High Prairie School Division. We've all been educated. And when I decided to run for trustee back in 2010, it was because I really wanted to learn as well as be able to provide input into how we get opportunities for kids. It's an interesting dichotomy across the province, and up here in northwestern Alberta, we're pretty diverse. We're pretty spread out in terms of where all of our kids are. Even within our singular school division, our school divisions are huge, and it's really hard sometimes to give some of those really excellent opportunities to kids that are more readily available when you are living closer to major centers. It's a fun experience when our teachers plan a school trip to take kids to the Citadel for a play, which is something that often kids are able to do through the school system in Edmonton or in Calgary or places where they have those kinds of services and extracurricular things. And for us, it's a 2-day trip to get our kids there. And so when I decided to run for trustee, I really, really, really wanted to be able to see what we could do for kids in my community, specifically when I started running in High Prairie, but then also across our division to make sure that our kids had access to all of the great things, including a good education, but all of the other things. And in my role at ASBA as Zone 1 Director, I've been honored to be able to bring the voice of all 9 of the school divisions in our corner of the province to the ASBA table so that we can learn from each other around what school divisions are like across the province, and so that as an association we can also try and bring all of those different contexts to this table so there's an understanding as we talk about education across the province. And I'm really proud to say there's some great things that happen in our school divisions up here, including my own, that are bringing great opportunities to kids.
I'm grateful to hear this. And Marilyn, I'm going to ask you the same question in just a second. But, like there's been so much, and maybe we're part of the problem. I don't know. This has been a bit of an introspective exercise for me through all of this, but we also reflect where politicians are taking policy. We reflect where the public is indicating outcry, quite frankly, around things. We've spent a lot of time in education talking about a looming teacher strike, talking about parental notification around pronoun changes, talking about parents signing waiver forms that yes, their daughter was born a girl if they want to play sports. We've talked about school book bans. We've talked about all this kind of stuff, and it just seems like heavy and negative and quite frankly discouraging. And like I said, I'm grateful for people like you, and there are countless trustees. There's trustees across the province and across this country that aren't sitting in front of cameras, that don't have a big audience today and this week, that are hammering away and doing this work because they, just as much as you three do, believe in the why. But I'm grateful to hear your reasons for signing up for this, because sometimes I think we don't need to hit reset in the sense that the issues are going to go away or we push them off the table, but a reminder that there are really positive things happening. There's reason for optimism amid the challenging circumstances. Marilyn, what's your why?
Sure. It's such a great question, and I kind of love telling the story in many ways. I'm so proud of and grateful for the Calgary Board of Education, and have a deep respect for the organization and the people in it. I'm a CBE graduate. My kids are all CBE graduates. Before I ran for trustee, I volunteered in community schools for 14 years and also worked for an education nonprofit as well that provided opportunities for students that might not otherwise have them. And throughout that time, it was really community members that were saying, Marilyn, you need to be in public office. We need people like you in public office. And so they would say, you should be a counselor, you should be a trustee. And when the time felt right for me in terms of where I was at with my family and where my kids were at, trusteeship made a whole lot of sense for me to do that. And in part, I was driven to it because of spending as much time as I did in schools. I saw the incredible work that was happening in schools, but also recognized some of the challenges. And so really ran on a platform in 2017 of equity, right? How do we create equity? How do we advance equity across a system as large as what the CBE is? And so, was really grateful for, the trust that community put in me in 2017, and then also again in 2021. Had the privilege of serving as board chair for the Calgary Board of Education in my first term, and then with the support of my trustee colleagues, ran for president of the Alberta School Boards Association in 2021. So elected by the public to serve as trustee, and then elected by school boards across the province to serve as the president over the last 4 years. So it's been an incredible journey. Strong believer in public Catholic and Francophone education that is governed by locally elected trustees. School boards elections really are the foundation of our democracy. There's, no other level of government that is, attached so closely to community. Public education really shapes our society and impacts all of society. So, certainly what I would hope is that even just through this conversation, that your listeners would realize how important it is to consider who it is that they're electing into these roles. And understanding what governance looks like.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an accident that we're having this episode before the election, and that's not to campaign for anybody on this panel who's seeking re-election. Not all three are, but we're steering clear of that. I want to talk about the issues. I want to talk about people in the positions of leadership, and we haven't even talked about coming out of COVID. We haven't even talked about coming out of the pandemic, which obviously had a huge impact on everybody. That goes without saying. But one of the things that I've noticed and one of the things that I've seen is that the polarization has become more and more significant, more and more intense, and you've got, if I can boil it down to this, you've got the right-wing groups that want to take over the school boards, Julie. They say they're going to take over the school boards, and then you've got the left-wing groups. I mean, I'm really dumbing this down, okay? We could say, the ardent conservatives, the social conservatives versus the progressives, however you want to frame it. But this is where the war is being waged, or this is one of the battlefields. And I see it happening. And I just went through that laundry list of all of the things that have raised the ire of Albertans, or that have earned the Premier a hell yeah. I mean, there's not everybody disagrees with everything, obviously. I've seen you on the front line in particular, and I'll have your colleagues comment on it as well, take incredible abuse. And it's disheartening to see. It's concerning to see. I don't imagine how you deal with it, but I want to ask you about that. And it's not, a bunch of right-wingers that are coming at you all the time. I've seen progressives pile on you, that you're working too closely with the UCP government, that you're complying with what Danielle Smith wants to do. I mean, how do you process it all? I'm putting you on the spot here, on purpose. I'm going to be honest. How do you sort through it? How do you deal with it? Where's your head at?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'd say it's incredibly frustrating, because I think what gets lost is, what is the purpose of a school board and school board trustees? Our job is to try and get the best possible education for the students that are enrolled within our school division. We don't do that by going and just lobbing grenades at the provincial government. How we do that is we set the division strategic plan. We use our budget to the best abilities, the best way that we can, stretch those dollars, put as much as we can directly into the classroom. We listen to our local communities. We bring forward the things that are really important to the board table, have some really healthy dialogue around that. We work in partnership with our superintendent to operationalize that, because our superintendent is our CEO and our instructional leader for our school division, responsible for operations. Trustees do not get involved in that as much as people would like us to. And then when it comes to this polarization piece, I think that it's really harmful, because it doesn't, it takes the focus and puts it on the politics and on the hot button issues that do not serve our students. They do, and so I would really encourage people not to, when they're, I know we're not getting super into politics here, but.
Oh, you can if you like.
So, all right, I'm going to put it out there. When you're going and you're thinking about who you want to vote for a trustee, I want people to go ahead, first of all, look at the Alberta School Board Association website, find out what a trustee does. It's a governance role. And yes, there's advocacy, that's part of it, but where that advocacy happens best is through booking a meeting with the provincial government, having a good conversation, and then going forward from there. There are going to be things that we will maybe never agree with the provincial government. But where are the places that we can agree and that we can work together to create success for students in our school division? And so then after you look at the Alberta School Board Association website, go ahead and look at the actual websites of the candidates running, Google their names, find out the records, look at their social media posts. Are they somebody who can work as a team? Because ultimately, trustees need to work together on the board in order to make things happen.
Marilyn, thanks for taking the question, by the way. Have you had a similar experience in candidly just being piled on all sides? The right-wingers think that you're a left-wing lunatic. I'm obviously having a bit of fun with the question around serious subject matter. The left-wingers think that you're bending over backwards for the conservative government. Like, you know what I mean? Like, nobody's happy. Nobody's satisfied. Everybody thinks they would do a better job. Has that been your experience?
Somewhat, not so much during election cycles per se, but really around, specific issues, right? So if there's certain decisions maybe that the board has made, and of course, as a trustee, your vote is your voice, and you support the decision of the board at the end of the day. And so probably more around that personally for me. It's been around some, individual issues, which I won't open the gate to that today, because then that will change this conversation. But in so many ways, like I said earlier, public education shapes all of society. And so people are passionate about it. And as trustees, we need to consider multiple viewpoints. We may not always agree with each other. We may not always agree with viewpoints that are being shared with us, but we must take into consideration all viewpoints as the connection point to the public and as a, and then that flow through to administration of our various school divisions. And so, but really what's important to, for all boards to remember, and, folks, as you're looking at candidates, is that boards of trustees are not the opposition, nor are they government. They are nonpartisan boards of governors that provide leadership to individual school divisions, with the ultimate goal of, increasing student results and creating an environment where all students can achieve success. And so really the focus needs to be on high quality governance, the ability to work with one another, and the ability to connect with your community and bring that voice back to the table.
It's obvious, to state the obvious. All three of you have used the phrase or the combo public education throughout this conversation, and I wonder, as we look at Alberta with the highest funding per student for private schools, and that's something that the government's been unapologetic around, and that Alberta has supported, including through the Rachel Notley government for many, many years. I myself, a graduate of both private and public schools, I can understand different perspectives of different families on this, but I'd love to ask the three of you how you feel about this, because this is obviously, again, something that many families are talking about, that average Albertans are talking about in the context of the strike. But just your thoughts around this government's support of private education, and the impact that has, maybe even what you see on the front line, or what you see in your own school divisions with those public schools. Tammy, why don't you take this one first?
Private schools are a challenge in a lot of areas. My belief is that an education should be available to everybody, and the highest quality education is available in our public schools. I worry when we talk about private schools that some kids will lose out on opportunity because funding is being shifted, and as public school boards, we recognize and provide education to every single child who knocks on our door. When a child knocks on our door, regardless of their learning level, their complexity, we welcome them in and we provide those services. And at the end of the day, regardless of where children are getting education, we need the system to support all of the tools required for any child. And the private school conversations are polarizing, and my goal at the end of the day in representing my school division and representing the 9 boards in my zone is to speak to the fact that we as public schools, public, separate and francophone schools specifically, provide awesome opportunities in every school that we have. And we provide STEM programming, and we provide farm programs, and we provide dual credit that's allowing our students to get secondary education credits as well as high school credits, and be leaving our system in grade 12 with class 4 engineering or healthcare aid certificates before they even graduate. And all of those things are happening in public schools. We can do those things with the support of our government and our communities. And so I think the conversation around private schools is very polarizing, but there's room to have conversation about the great things that we do in our system as publicly elected boards that are accountable to our communities and all of our taxpayers as well. So
I think that was a very fair and diplomatic answer. Not that you cared about my feedback, but I think it's fair. And I want to approach this, like, that's kind of the mandate of this whole show, is we want to have real conversations, meet in the middle. Not on absolutely everything. Sometimes you're going to have a fiery and strong opinion where you're inflexible. We're only human. But I like this from Tracy D in our live chat, powered by Park Power, your friendly local utilities provider. She says, I can't imagine anyone caring if somebody sends their kid to a private school. But funding these schools with public dollars, Tracy says, is inappropriate. She says no other province funds private schools with public money like Alberta does. What would you add to the conversation, Julie?
Yeah, just, you know what, Ryan, I'm a fierce and unapologetic supporter and champion of public education. I think that it is the foundation of our democracy, of the ability for our communities and the people in it to thrive into the future. And so if we keep hearing that Alberta's provincial budget is tight, well, when you've got a tight budget, you have to make tough choices. And if the public education system is not funded adequately, then maybe we have to look at the overall education system and say, are we allocating provincial tax dollars in the best way possible to serve every single student? I'd argue the best place for that is in public education. And just to add to what Tammy said, I mean, this last year, Edmonton Public celebrated 50 years of alternative programming. We've got over 30 different alternative programs. There are great opportunities and choice within the public education system that I think is really worth celebrating. And I hope that we never lose sight of that.
Marilyn, I don't get this. I don't get the sense that it's up for debate or up for negotiation. I don't get the sense that this government, or for that matter, you never know, but future Alberta governments would pull the rug out from under private schools. I guess I'm editorializing a little bit with the way that I'm framing that, but it doesn't strike me as something that's on the table, certainly not in negotiations anytime soon. But what do you think that the future of education, in the context of private versus public, competitive dollars, Julie just framed it that way, if Alberta's in a deficit position, if budget is tight, tough choices do have to be made. What would you like to see in the context of what we're talking about here?
I guess I would like to see a conversation advance with government around, what the funding model looks like and how it is that we're funding, different school divisions. As you know, I'm from Calgary. Calgary really is the epicenter of charter and private schools. We've had charter schools in Calgary for well over 30 years and private schools for just as long. You will never, ever hear me criticize the decision of parents, ever. As parents, we all want what is best for our kids. And for some families, that means that they want to access a school division outside of a public Catholic or Francophone school division. So you're not going to hear me criticizing parents at all about the decisions that they're making in that regard, because we all want what is best for our kids. But I do believe that a strong public education system is governed by locally elected trustees. Trustees are working always to ensure that there's quality education across the province for families and students and for the entire community. And it's very important that we're funding our public Catholic and Francophone school divisions appropriately to be able to continue to offer world-class education. Alberta is a very high-performing district in the country and in the world. And so funding matters, and channeling funding where it's needed most really does matter. And so, locally elected trustees are accountable to the public for every dollar that is spent in education. If you were to look at the websites of school divisions that have locally elected trustees, you're going to see information very plainly explained on their websites around budget and how it is that they're allocating funding. That information is transparent and it's available to everyone.
It sounds to me, it sounds to me like are you indicating concerns around transparency with some private schools? That's kind of what I'm reading between the lines here.
I think that the standards should be the same in terms of public reporting and public accountability. So wherever public dollars are being spent, then the accountability should be the same.
Okay, fair comment.
I do see, generally speaking, a higher level of transparency when you're looking at a locally elected school board.
You're nodding as she's talking.
Yeah, I would really, star what Marilyn was just saying. I mean, the fact that the citizens of the community get to cast a vote in their ballot for the person that they want to represent their interest in education. You can't get that anywhere else. You only get that in public education. And I think that there's real value in that. There's a whole other layer of accountability that I think is really important. Whether you have kids in school or not, whether you're a grandparent, whether you're a single person, whatever it is, I think we all have a vested interest in ensuring that the children of the day are well educated, know what they need to know, are critical thinkers, so they can go out and be excellent contributing members of our society, because that benefits all of us. And so the ability to cast your ballot for a trustee who can represent your interests, can make that happen, take a look at the results, how are we performing against that, and be able, be on the spot to answer some tough questions is really, really important.
We've got some great comments. I appreciate the conversation that's happening here in our live chat, powered by Park Power. Ryan, checking in from Central Alberta, says private schools should remain an option for those who choose, but the question needs to center around public good and public need. Erica says this is probably an oversimplification, but if a certain amount of money is allocated to each student toward education, why does it matter what school they go to? She says public, private, sports, charter, etc. I guess as an oversimplification with my answer, people would just say the more money that's taken out of the public system hurts the public system more. Definitely oversimplifying, Erica, but I take your point, take your question. Randy says, I'm all for having private schools, but absolutely no public dollars and no public schools. He says no public schools allowed money to go to private schools. So Randy just he's all happy to see the schools exist, but figures that they should sink or swim based on their ability to fundraise or charge higher tuitions, which is, what they do in a lot of other Canadian provinces. Jim says the UCP likes the business model for independent schools. Others of you talking about Montessori schools. M. Aitken says Weber Academy shouldn't get public funding. That's a Calgary-based private school, a pretty well-known one. That in Strathcona Tweedsmuir. I think it's about $30,000 a year to go there. I might be wrong. I haven't double-checked. Let me wrap with this. We're way over time, and I know that the three of you have stuff to do. Plus, we've got Jason Leslie locked and loaded, ready to go with Alberta Chambers of Commerce. But I've seen a recurring theme in our live chat today, and we'll give the word here to Nick, who's watching us. Says yesterday Alberta's premier indicated that the province employs enough teachers. Says that she believes there should be about 21 students in a class. Typically politicians will say depending on what age, but Nick says she blamed school boards for mismanaging the allocation of teachers. I have seen a reference to the premier's comments, basically where she said we do need to look at how resources are deployed. It is shining light back on school boards. It's deflecting a bit of the criticism. This all comes with politics. It comes with the job. But your response?
Yeah, I would say that when I was first elected, I kind of wondered about, okay, how efficient is Edmonton Public Schools? Sometimes there's a perception that public organizations do not use their funds as efficiently as maybe the private sector. So I was quite keen to sort of keep my ear out for that. And I have been surprised and impressed over and over again throughout the past 4 years of serving on the Board of Trustees with Edmonton Public Schools about how well we do use the funds that we have. And I will also share that under the old funding formula, I also witnessed a cut to our budget every single year until this current school year, where we're at a status quo budget with the brand new funding formula. And every year, the Board of Trustees asks for an operational efficiencies report from our administration so that we can see what are the creative things that are happening to try and use every dollar as best we can and funnel as much as we can directly into the classrooms. And in spite of those budget cuts every single year, we've been consistently putting the same proportion directly into the classrooms. So I would really... I think if there's an assertion that we could be having class sizes of 21 children, then I would really, again, let's sit down. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk that through, because there are additional other costs. We've got a position statement that all school boards across the province through ASBA have supported around tying our public funding for school boards to the rate of inflation. We're seeing our budgets eroded by that. There's lots of conversations that I think need to go into this before we just say, yeah, we could do class sizes of 21. If we could, that would be awesome. So how are we going to get there?
Yeah, it's tough. It's like in sports when there's a salary cap, it's inflexible. Governments, well, at least the Alberta government, as we've been hearing from our experts, including labor experts, pretty hesitant or even unwilling to include class size caps there to float a number. Like 21 is aggressive when we're hearing from teachers every single day. I mean, we've got emails here. Like, look at this. These are just the ones that we're considering reading on air. These aren't the ones we've received. These are just the ones we're considering reading on air. Put it that way. And like, how many emails is here? There's 30 emails here, Julie. You get the idea. Teachers 36, 38, 39 in their classrooms. It's bonkers. I do, Marilyn and Tammy, want to give you a chance to respond to this before we wrap this roundtable. It's been a wonderful conversation. I appreciate your candor. But you know, Tammy, maybe I'll give you a chance just to respond to that question, the assertion that maybe we do need to look at how resources are deployed. It's not an inflammatory statement in itself. You know, any organization should look at how its resources are deployed, but the implication may not land well with everybody. How does it land with you?
I think that as trustees in this province, we're pretty good at doing more with less, perhaps, or doing more with the same, because one of the things that we have to recognize that school divisions are providing more services within our school divisions than we ever have before. When we talk about having our mental health support teams and things like that. But what I also know is that it's hard to really talk about class size and complexity and a real hard cap when the context across the province is so different. It's really hard to divide 700,000 students by 40,000 teachers and say, this is how many kids should be in a class, because there's boards that are growing beyond imagination, and there's boards that are holding steady but have increasing complexity needs, and there's boards that are seeing shrinking enrollment, but our bus rides aren't getting shorter. Nothing is costing less in our areas. When I think about Northern Alberta, and if I go into my grocery store and pay $17 for a bag of green grapes, or $1.43.9 right now for fuel in my community. And
hey, is that a real price? Is that a real price? $17 for a bag of green grapes for real?
Yeah.
That's like none of it pricing.
$6 for a pomegranate.
Oh my gosh. I don't even know I don't know how to pick a good or a lousy pomegranate. I don't know the pricing on pomegranates.
Right. But when I say that, I think the school boards do a great job. There's no misspending happening. We're doing a very good job of trying to provide everything possible for kids. And at the end of the day, we are fully accountable. I would welcome a conversation with anybody who wants to talk about how we allocate our funds. We are open to those conversations as trustees, and we're proud to be open about those conversations. And we can justify the decisions we make about the teams that we have in place to support our kids and our teachers, because at the end of the day, we need all of them to be successful.
Marilyn, last word to you.
No, thank you so much. The fiscal accountability is important, and those questions being asked by trustees and by school boards of their administration are of critical importance. Trustees should be asking questions about how budgets are being allocated and what funding is being used for. We are elected to do that. And so those are important questions. I would say, much like what Julie shared earlier, when I was first elected in 2017, I was curious about that too. I wanted to take a look on the inside and have that opportunity to see how funds were allocated, only to be, again, assured over and over again with numbers in front of me that, dollars are being driven consistently to the classroom, and sometimes to the detriment of central supports being able to be offered, because we are trying so hard to drive dollars into schools, keep class sizes as low as we can, ensure that there are supports in schools that students need. But it's becoming increasingly more difficult as we look at inflation, as we look at increasing complexity. Complexity does cost. And as public school boards, we welcome every student, regardless of their background, regardless of their ability. We welcome all of them. And we need to do our best to educate them, and we're happy to do it. But yeah, those fiscal responsibility questions are important, and I hope that trustees will continue asking those questions. And I also know that every school board, all 61 locally elected school boards, public, Catholic, and Francophone, would be more than happy to share the stories of their division, share the stories of the students that they serve with their community and with anyone who will listen.
That's Marilyn Dennis, a trustee with the Calgary Board of Education and president of the Alberta School Boards Association. By the way, you can check out the ASBA's website. We'll link to it in the show notes for you. They've got a great resource there leading up to the municipal elections in our home province coming up on Monday, October 20th. We've also been joined out of the High Prairie School Division, where she's vice chair and director at the ASBA, Tammy Henkel, and in studio, the chair of the Edmonton Public School Board, trustee as well, of course, Julie Kusiek. Thanks to the three of you for doing this. Thanks for your candor. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. This has been a great conversation.
Thanks, friends. Again, asba.ab.ca. Real Talkers, we want to know how this is landing with you. You can leave a comment on a YouTube episode, leave a comment on Spotify for that matter, and you can always send us an email to talk@ryanjesperson.com. We are going to get to more of your emails today, emails from teachers. One of them, Kaylee, we have you locked and loaded. We also have a poem from an Alberta teacher who wrote into the show. A bit of a different take on this, which I sure appreciate. And that conversation will continue. On the other side of this, we're going to check in. We're going to talk business. The Alberta Chambers of Commerce has their eye on Alberta business. I want to get their take on the heels of their AGM, and in particular, these big international diplomacy missions. Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand, India, China, Mark Carney, Egypt, lots happening. What about here at home? That coming up in just a moment. It is Thursday, this episode, which means that every week, in partnership with our friends at Play Alberta, we have a chance to focus on a story where Alberta wins. We'll take the politics out of it. Province-wide, what's a story that we can all get excited about? And this one, I love the seasonal nature of it all. Grab your pumpkin spice latte, everybody, and settle in, because in this week's edition of Alberta Wins, this is an absolute squash hit. Will you permit me that? We're headed to Smoky Lake, Alberta. This is the pumpkin capital of Canada. We're at the 35th annual, this is amazing, the Great White North Pumpkin Fair. A fella by the name of Don Cruz has just walked away with the crown. And by crown, I'm talking about get this, a 1,368 pound pumpkin that could basically double as a hot tub. This is absolutely unbelievable. That's Don on the left if you're watching us on YouTube or on any social media platforms. Don is the winner. His pumpkin, 1,368.5 pounds. Dustin Christensen, that was standing there next to him, second place. Imagine this, Johnny. He loses by 5 pounds. His pumpkin, 1,363 pounds. Yeah, that's right. So Cruz's colossal gourd, the winning pumpkin this year in Smoky Lake, was not an accident, guys. This isn't like your average backyard pumpkin patch operation. Don started growing his pumpkin indoors back in April, and then he moved it outside. He moved it outside once the frost risk was gone, watering it 4 to 5 times a day, tracking its growth like a newborn baby. I might have put that part in myself. Keeping the soil at the right temperature as close as he can control it. At one point, he reports that his award-winning pumpkin was putting on 40 pounds a day. I can relate. Beyond the science and sweat, though, this is what Alberta's all about. This is why I absolutely love this story. Well, there's a million reasons why I love it, but community spirit, friendly competition, and people cheering for something that, let's be honest, is a little bit wonderfully weird, right? It's incredible. 35 years of this Smoky Lake Great White North Pumpkin Fair. Families are out there. Kids are blown away, as you would be by a 1,368-pound pumpkin. Folks are swapping growing tips, pie recipes, all celebrating harvest season in this fantastic prairie province. So our hats off to Don Cruz, who is the undisputed Pumpkin King of 2025. Sure, it may not fit into a jack-o'-lantern mold. It's not going to be on anybody's front porch here, but it sure fits the record books, and it found its way into our hearts. And that makes this an Alberta win, presented by our friends at Play Alberta. You know, all through the Oilers season, Albertans are winning with Play Alberta, and you right now can win a $50 free bet at the Play Alberta app or at playalberta.ca using the code Ryan50. That's Ryan50. A $50 free bet with a $50 deposit at playalberta.ca or on the Play Alberta app. Ryan50. You must be 18 or older to play, and if you gamble, please use your GameSense. 1,368 pounds for the award-winning pumpkin in Smoky Lake. As we welcome Jason Leslie from the Alberta Chambers of Commerce to the show, you were quietly intrigued, I could see, by that. Have you ever seen in real life, up close and personal, a 1,368-pound pumpkin?
I have not. I've seen 1,000-pound one. Just tipped the scales over 1,000. It was just ginormous. So I can't even imagine it's like another 300 pounds.
I promise that we'll talk business. You and your team have the eye on Alberta business, but allow me to talk angling. Allow me to talk fishing for just a quick second. There is a parallel. You and I can find fishing parallels to just about anything.
We sure can.
And anybody with a real love for fishing knows that sometimes the biggest fish don't taste the best. And I was wondering about that 1,368.5-pound pumpkin. I wonder if it's the best for pumpkin pies. Like, could this create 500 pumpkin pies, or is it maybe kind of Maybe you want like the 6-pounder.
I think it's good for the
pumpkin
photo ops.
Pies. Good for the photo ops. If I know anything, I know that our Real Talk live chat will have some insights on this, and we'll probably have pumpkin experts that are chiming in on the prime and perfect size for the perfect pumpkin pie.
You've got an engaged crowd. They love to share their insights.
We sure will. Hey, I want to talk to you, Johnny. Can we load up that short from Nick Taylor-Vasey, the elbows down short? Talked to Politico's Ottawa bureau chief just one episode ago, and it kind of I was thinking it sets the table nicely for what you and I are going to be talking about. Whether or not Mark Carney and Canada, in particular, negotiations with India has dropped the elbows down, and as often happens on this show, the hockey metaphors were infused throughout. Here's a portion of our conversation with Nick Taylor-Vasey. Elbows up is obviously a hockey reference from a PM who loves hockey. The most famous elbows in hockey belong to Mr. Hockey, to Gordie Howe. As much as he was a menace on the ice, was also one of the game's all-time true gentlemen. You could say the same thing about the most vicious set of elbows that Alberta's capital city has ever seen. Who's that? It's Mark Messier. And the league named its leadership award after that set of elbows, and not just because he would concuss guys that were in his way, but also because of his diplomacy on behalf of the league, and also because of how he conducted himself in public. I'm not convinced that it's ineffective until it's not. A year from now, U.S.-Canada trade talks are still at a stalemate. There's been really no meaningful progress on renewing that North American deal. Then obviously Carney's political problems will be very evident to everybody. But I think that anybody that assumed that elbows up meant someone like Mark Carney was going to tell the president of the United States to pound sand, not talk to him, not try to build a relationship, not try to find common ground, not try to find some sort of friendship. We call it the U.S.-Canada relationship. We refer to it as a friendship all the time. I think was fooling themselves. I don't know if what Carney's doing is masterful, to see if it is, but it strikes me as strategy. I don't doubt that he and Donald Trump would be dinner buddies or play a lot of golf together, but at the same time, the fact that they're talking, the fact that the president's not insulting him like he was wont to insult Justin Trudeau all the time, to me, you have to believe it's good for Canada. We're moving in the right direction.
Of course, the risk is that he is seen eventually, Carney, as a perception. He might go golfing with Trump. He might be the kind of guy who might go down to Mar-a-Lago. I think we have to be careful about the Carney hockey metaphor, only because he's a goalie. He wasn't a forward. But you mentioned delivery. The next question for Carney is, okay, so he shifted this relationship with Trump, and he's trying to reset the relationship with India and with China. He's trying to have more influence at these summits, like this pretty high-profile one in Egypt. So at what point does that actually start to make a difference?
At what point does it start to make a difference? And people can check out the full episode. That's our October 15th episode, where Nick starts talking about what that making a difference looks like. And that includes deals with the provinces. It includes these nation-building projects. It includes addressing concerns that Canadians, including Albertans, have about their everyday life. That's something that I know that the team at Alberta Chambers is all over, keeping an eye on deliverables.
Absolutely. I mean, notwithstanding the fact that relationship building takes time, some of these relationships that you were mentioned yesterday are critically important for Canada, and the Prime Minister's job is a difficult one, and you've got to balance a lot of priorities. Getting Canada self-sustaining, resilient, competitive. When I was thinking about that pumpkin, I was thinking about, imagine what a Canadian economy would look like. 1,300-pound pumpkin,
right?
What would it look like if Canada was just thriving and resilient and competitive? Showstopper. that would be an amazing outcome, and that's what we're really driving towards.
So this is kind of where your focus has been, along with your colleagues from across the country. You're literally just back from the Canadian Chamber of Commerce AGM, where you and your colleagues representing Alberta. I mean, generally speaking, how did it go? You got to be inspired after something like that, but also probably, I would imagine, some reality checks along the way.
Absolutely. It was very inspiring. There was a lot of collaboration. There was a tremendous amount of alignment about what the big priorities are, and for Canada, that is getting our major projects built, getting energy active, getting energy competitive, getting our critical minerals going, making sure that our talent side of the equation is going to be able to meet that demand. These are really important priorities, and at the end of the day, this still needs to be number one job for our Prime Minister.
So there's a lot of there's policy resolutions that are submitted. Looks like Alberta kind of ran the table on this. Was that 13 policy resolutions that they were all adopted nationally?
Yeah, it was a big win.
Which is huge. I mean, we're just talking about Alberta Wins. Take us into this one. We can't go through all 13, but what were one or two that particularly jumped out that were really significant?
Yeah, there was resolutions from supporting agriculture, another obviously absolutely critical sector for Canada's economy and certainly for the prairie provinces in Alberta. There was a lot of alignment around energy, getting major projects built. But one of the really interesting ones was around an innovative idea actually put forward by Peter Terzakian on how can we get Canadians involved and engaged in major energy projects and infrastructure. And that was introducing the concept of some retail debt, offering the government providing a retail bond opportunity for Canadians to invest in energy infrastructure. And, it's really about addressing the NIMBY. It's really held us back in Canada a lot. Well, if you're not in a region where a pipeline is running through or you're directly benefiting from that, it's understandable to a certain extent that people can see that as not, particularly relevant. But if we can give them the opportunity to own a piece of the pie, that can be pretty tremendous, not only for financing these projects potentially, but also allowing Canadians to really get involved and take ownership.
So you got you had Camrose and Sherwood Park and Lethbridge and I think I saw Grand Prairie in there. I mean, is there alignment in all these different communities? Like, do you find that an exercise like this sort of develops a unified front if one didn't already exist?
It certainly builds a tremendous amount of alignment. I mean, we're a grassroots organization. We very much respect the priorities of respective business communities at the local level. But Alberta works very hard. Our network works very hard to share intelligence and insights and really bring forward a strong slate of priorities from Alberta's business community to that national stage. And they really showed up for Alberta Business last week.
Do you get a sense that attitudes are changing outside? Like when you're at a national AGM and you're talking about these nation building projects, and every region will have its own idea of what would be most beneficial or what would be most ideal, and it's not always I mean, it could be industry specific, but not always. From where I'm sitting, it appears as though some attitudes are changing or evolving. There's some more open-mindedness in particular, and not from everyone, but in particular in BC and Quebec around the idea of energy expansion, pipelines in particular. Do you get that same sense at this Canadian Chambers AGM? Like, I would imagine you're talking to people from across the country, obviously, about these exact sort of things. What were they saying?
I'd say that it really validated your perspective on that. We've gone to that AGM in the past and put forward resolutions and recommendations that we knew would be important for some industry, energy, for example, that sometimes had some pushback, and there was just a tremendous amount of support coast to coast from local business communities in support of those. The business community understands what we need to do to get this economy going.
Municipal elections, I'm not sure if you heard, but actually there's an election coming up on your team has been pedal to the metal on this.
We sure have.
I'll credit you guys. I mean, it's big time. abchamber.ca, we'll link to it in the show notes. People can go straight to it. But you guys have completed your municipal red tape and business supports research. What are you hearing from businesses on the ground ahead of this, or at least in the context of this election?
Yeah, there's still some, real persistent issues that have showed up. This is an annual benchmark survey that we do, and we're going to be releasing the report tomorrow, so stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
But, there's cost issues. Utilities, business taxes are big ones. Business attraction and retention was the number one priority that the respondents had for their incoming electees. And at the same time, engagement by local officials with the business community was really flagged that there's a big gap there. And so it's a tremendous opportunity for the successful candidates coming out of Monday's election to think about the business community wants to engage. They want to help their communities be prosperous. And a tremendous way to do that is to connect directly with them and have conversations about what those priorities and opportunities are.
But yeah, like in plain language, business owners don't feel like their elected representatives are listening to them.
Yes, in plain language, that would be it. And it's not always just about listening. It's about the just actual dialogue, engaging.
Okay. I mean, business attraction and retention, we just heard that from school boards. We hear about it from healthcare. It's kind of this consistent challenge, isn't it? That obviously I think puts the impetus back on elected officials to a certain degree at all different levels of government, right? But in particular, it's a recurring theme. It's something that you and I have talked about, and of course, the CEO at Alberta Chambers, Shauna Feth, as well, as a recurring issue, almost regardless of where the price of oil is, or almost regardless of what it's a consistent challenge.
I mean, it just at the end of the day, the vast majority of businesses are small, medium size here in Alberta and across the country. Those people are they have families. They're involved in their communities in so many volunteer roles. These people genuinely care about the future and opportunities that their communities can provide, and they're just an incredible source of intelligence and opportunity for local officials to tap into.
One of the things that jumped out at me just being privy to that report, I know you said you're releasing it for public consumption within the next day or so. Again, abchamber.ca, where you can check out Alberta Chambers of Commerce. This was, I mean, I guess it feels like a bit of a punch in the gut, to be honest with you. Almost 7 out of 10 Alberta businesses, 68%, saying that they've been affected by some form of crime in the past year. One of the things that jumped out at me was that almost 1 in 3 businesses reported being impacted by cybercrime.
Yeah.
Theft and vandalism, I get that, but 1 in 3 impacted by cybercrime. That's what's something that the Alberta Chambers would lead on there. That's something that I think for a lot of people wouldn't even be on the radar until all of a sudden you're dealing with it.
Yeah, it's growing tremendously. It's not just here in Canada or Alberta. It's really worldwide, and those folks that are undertaking that kind of criminal activity are getting more sophisticated every day. You're definitely going to be seeing supports and resources coming forward from the Alberta Chambers, and in the next while that are going to intended to support businesses and educate them about it, because the best defense against that kind of crime is preventative. It's being prepared.
So this monthly partnership that we have, where you have your eye on Alberta business and you kind of come here and get us up to speed. I always like at the end, whether it's you, Shauna, another team member, to kind of ask for like a takeaway. You've got national advocacy happening. You've got municipal priorities front of mind ahead of this election on the 20th. What would you say, not just for Alberta businesses, but in particular, business owners, business operators? What's like the big takeaway this month as far as you see it?
Take the conversation to your officials at all levels. Come voice your priorities. Make sure it's right on the front radar for the first thing that those incoming new representatives at the local level. October 21st, be ready to go talk to them. Find ways to do that, and our chamber is going to be facilitating those conversations. And I'd also encourage people to look at our upcoming events. We've just got an incredible lineup of events here later in November, including our Talent Symposium, another annual event, but our fall board meeting and Deputy Minister's Dinner. We've got Peter Trzakian, who we mentioned earlier, is one of our speakers. Absolutely thrilled to have him there, and really speaking about this importance of economic sovereignty and how to get there. And we also have Heather Exner-Pirot from the Macdonald Laurier Institute.
She's great. She's been on the show.
Fantastic as well. So we've got a fantastic lineup, and we have a tremendous outcome of Deputy Minister is going to be there at that dinner. So another opportunity for business to be engaging with officials at the provincial level. Yeah,
I think that was probably one of the more robust conversations we've had on this show in the last year. Heather Exner-Pirot and Max Fawcett didn't frame it as a debate, but it wound up as a debate, which I'm always happy to see.
Yes, you are.
And but she's sharp, man, and she's got she's got good perspectives, and I think that your members are going to appreciate that. The Alberta Chambers of Commerce is the voice of Alberta business, as you can see on the site here, abchamber.ca. You can learn more about their Alberta Perspective surveys. They've got great insights into Alberta's labor shortage and, of course, the benefits of membership. That's key. If you own or you operate a small, medium-sized, or even a massive business in the province of Alberta, you need to be a member of the Alberta Chambers of Commerce. Jason Leslie in on behalf of the Alberta Chambers with his eye on Alberta business. Thanks for doing this.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. It's always a pleasure to be here.
I knew that if anybody could go from pumpkins to fishing to trade talks and pipelines, it was you.
And you
delivered.
And you.
Thanks, Jay.
Hey, thanks, Ryan.
Wishing you well this weekend.
Likewise.
This conversation made possible by our friends at the Alberta Chambers of Commerce and other valued Real Talk partners, and that includes Pathways Alliance. If you're not familiar with what Pathways Alliance is up to, it's powering Canada's economy. That is Canada's oil and gas sector. You can learn more about the economic benefits of Alberta's oil and gas sector, in particular Canada's oil sands. That's what Pathways Alliance is all about. The 6 largest oil sands companies in Alberta, in the country, obviously. CNRL, Cenovus, ConocoPhillips, Imperial, Meg Energy, and Suncor, working together to provide the energy the world needs while advancing environmental innovation and projects. The Prime Minister talked about this specifically when he was with us back on the 10th of September. If you want to learn more about the Pathways Alliance initiative and how Canada's energy sector is driving this nation's economy, you can check out pathwaysalliance.ca. The team at Solar by Kubi celebrating 10 years this year, and if you can believe it, marking 5,700 solar installs. That puts them right at the top of the list of Western Canada's busiest green energy companies, and we're so proud to partner with the team at Kubi. You know, one of the things that makes them special, and there's a lot that really sets Kubi apart, is that this company was founded by a couple of oil-field electricians that saw a different way of doing things moving forward. They're engineers, they're electricians, they're technicians. This is not a company started by salespeople, and that means that they take great pride in the technical capabilities, the efficiencies, and the cleanliness of their designs. You can learn more about Kubi by checking out kubi.ca. That's KUBY.ca. And once the snow flies, it doesn't mean you can't go get that free solar quote. Get first on the list for an install in spring. You can request that free solar quote today at kubi.ca. A lot of talk about this looming election for obvious reasons, and the stakes are high. The 7,000 plus members of Civic Service Union 52, that's CSU 52, want to ensure that Edmonton's future includes everyone. That's why they have EdmontonForEveryone.ca clearly laying out their top priorities as Edmontonians head to the polls. These are the people who make Edmonton work every single day. 911, 311 operators, rec center staff, technical staff at the Edmonton Police Service, TELUS World of Science, you name it, that's CSU 52. Check out their priorities today at EdmontonForEveryone.ca. And at UCAN Youth Services, Real Talk's charity of choice for 2025-26, they are turning lives around in partnership with these young people who have a desire to get out of harm's way and onto a path of economic independence. This is all about empowerment. You can read more about it on their website, ucan.ca, including their Road to Work program that's helping young people aged 18 to 25 with opportunities to enter the construction trades. It's also addressing labor shortages. It's an incredible program in partnership with big employers. If you're in charge of hiring for your company and you're looking for reliable, motivated, entry-level workers, you can find a perfect fit at UCAN. Again, you'll find them online at ucan.ca. Shout out to Super Chat Ken. $10 into the Super Chat, Ken, on YouTube. We sure appreciate that. He says a toast for Bruce Saville, who passed away Monday. Ken says, as a former employee of Bruce's, I got to watch his philanthropy firsthand. I saw it myself. He gave generously to so many causes, and he will be sorely missed. Ken, your sentiments, I echo them, and they jumped right off the page at me. Johnny, we, as you know, I play for the Three Pinters basketball team in the Edmonton Men's League, and we've got a game tonight, and that game goes at the Saville Center, and every time we're there on the U of A campus, I see that that tribute to Bruce and his philanthropy and his contributions to Edmonton's community, and it lands with me every single time. And Ken, so did your comment there, and want to celebrate Bruce Saville's legacy and pass along our condolences to his family. a 1,368.5 pound pumpkin, the winner in Smoky Lake. Do you know anything about baking pumpkin pies?
Do I?
You
Well,
just
let me
struck
tell
me.
you,
Sometimes
Ryan.
you surprise us.
I've pied many a pumpkin, sir. I would say I told you this ahead of Gobble Gobble Day, the Thanksgiving, that top 3 pies for me. I mean, people will argue my first choice is rhubarb, but rhubarb, pumpkin, apple. That's the order it goes in.
But here's my impression of pumpkin pie, and I know people are going to cringe when I say this. I'm just trying to keep it real. Is like it strikes me. I'm pretty sure it's fairly rare. Although we're going to hear from people that have been like masterfully baking pumpkin pies from scratch for all of eternity, and they'll set me straight. Which I invite. I want you to. I want to learn more about this. But I think the majority of people that bake pumpkin pies at home get the pumpkin pie. Like the stuff, they get the middle stuff, the pumpkin stuff out of a can.
Yeah.
Like they're not like scraping it out of pumpkins, right?
But my grandmother used to like make it from the actual pumpkins. Like I remember,
Really? So you watched her do it?
Dude, get the pumpkin, carve the pumpkin, and then take out the seeds, roast the seeds. Oh my gosh, pumpkin seeds with a little salt. Oh, there's nothing better, nothing more natural and wholesome. But I don't think the average person, if you sat them down and like, here's a pie, I carved out a pumpkin, I put it in a blender, I added spices and sweetener, all that stuff, made a pumpkin pie, and then you did one with a can. I'm not sure there'd be much difference unless you were like some kind of pie connoisseur.
Uh-huh. We invite your feedback here to the show. We talk about issues of varying importance. From municipal elections, education, teacher strikes, nation building projects. I've seen some interesting comments here on nation. I think it was Ytrium. Chat's moving fast today. Said they'd like to see a nation building project around rail expansion. See some other comments here. Semper Fi Danny said that speaker she's talking about, Jason Leslie with Alberta Chambers of Commerce, said kind of nailed the point and reiterated that there maybe hasn't been enough focus through this election campaign on communication between different levels of government. Danny says there's not a focus here on improving municipal and provincial relations. That did come up, I thought, in particular in our October 3rd Edmonton Mayor's Roundtable and in our October 10th Calgary Mayor's Roundtable. Definitely relations between municipal governments in the province has come up, but it's been a recurring storyline for the past couple of years at the very least, and obviously beyond that. But some pretty significant changes in not just how funding is working and downloading of costs, but also just straight up, I mean, the municipalities would say provincial interference. That's not how the province sees it. The Green Line in Calgary would be an example of the province stepping in and saying, we have no confidence in how this project's coming along, so we're stepping in. And then all of a sudden you got Calgary's council going, what the hell is going on here? So I do think that that's a very good point to be made. And then I also see some criticism in the chat, which we welcome, and I will take responsibility for this, that there has been nary a Blue Jays mention, not a single comment about the Toronto Blue Jays absolutely
we don't want to jinx it.
Thumping. And that's why I'm not saying a lot.
Don't
It's like
jinx it.
they went into Seattle, into the Emerald City, and they did what they had to do, and now they got to do it again tonight. So that's kind of where I think we should leave it for now.
Yeah, I think I don't know. It'd be great if the roles are reversed here and like the home teams are just not playing good at home. I hope they get another win this next game. But man, it's hard to not get right back on the train when you see the bats just click in the way they were last night.
Right.
And they look so, like, it's crazy. Like, the first two games, you're like, what's going on here? They don't look comfortable. Is something off? Is it a different color Gatorade? Is the chewing gum, like, are the sunflower seeds the wrong flavor? What's happening here? It's got to be a little thing, because so much of baseball, and people will disagree and argue on this, is about comfortability. You see guys come up to the plate, and you know what I mean? They have a way, they have a stance. I heard someone last night during the broadcast say this. They said, one of the players said, it's amazing how fast the game is when you're standing in front of a pitcher. And then you go in the bullpen, and everything's so much slower. You're like, oh, he's going to do a knuckleball next. Now he's going fastball straight down the middle. Like, you can see the game in real time. Whereas when you get up at the plate, He said it's just like you're in fast forward, right? So it's all about nerves, and I feel like they just looked so comfortable last night. I was like, when Vladdy stepped up, I was like, oh my God. He had first of all, I love the pink guards that he wears on his left side.
Yeah, he wears red guards at home though, right?
Yeah,
pink on the road.
He's got the pinks for the road, which are flamboyant, and I love it. But he stepped up, and I was like, he looks so calm right now. And boom, first pitch, ding, home run. I was like, wow, they look incredible. I'm going to stop there because I don't want to get too.
I have a text channel open with a friend of mine in Seattle. And he's been talking smack about how he's certain that it's going to be a West Coast World Series, and he wants to see the Dodgers and the Mariners.
Seattle is very good.
Yeah, well, I think the Jays are better, but I'm just kind of keeping after the first two games. I've just decided I'm sort of playing it coy through all of this.
We've got these guys like Kirk last night too. Steps up, hits a dinger right out of there.
Yeah.
It's like we've got these guys who their body types, the look of them, like the classic baseball player. You think of the chiseled jaw, like you know what I mean, the classic home run hitter.
Well, it depends what era, but yeah.
But now like Vladdy. Kirk, like these are guys who necessarily don't look like
like David Ortiz.
Exactly, right? But last night, Kirk, again, when he stepped up, I was like, wow, he looks really calm. And then he hits a dinger out of the park. I was like, what's happening right now? This is like the Yankees
Kirk's
all over.
become one of my favorite professional athletes in the last month. He wasn't all over my radar. I told you we were out in Toronto a couple of weeks ago, lucky enough to get to a couple of ball games. If you follow me on Instagram, you saw it all over my stories. And I bought of course, I was going to buy a jersey. I'm just like, I'm not bandwagon, but I'm pretty bandwagon. I mean, I've always loved the Jays, but I didn't own all the gear. Now my buddies are ripping me because I'm just basically ripping the tags off all the new stuff and putting it on. But a friend of mine says, well, what jersey are you going to get? I go, well, Joe Carter 29. Like, that's what I'm going to get. And now
That's a great choice.
I thank you.
Choice.
But I almost kind of feel like I maybe made a mistake and maybe I should have gone with the Kirk jersey. Kirk is all of us.
A throwback jersey I appreciate so much more than a newer or like a funny. Like I see a lot of couples, they're like 99 and then one's like problems 8-1 kind of thing. Like I get it, that's fun. But like if I see like a Jesse Barfield or like a, you know what I mean, like a Mookie Wilson or like all these throwback, I'm like that. I love that.
Buddy of mine gave me an Astros Nolan Ryan jersey for my birthday one year. It is sick. It's like the Nolan red and the yellow and. What I love about my favorite Nolan Ryan highlight of all time has nothing to do with pitching. It has to do when a guy charged the mound.
Of course.
Nolan Ryan was like 40-something years old and just put the guy in a headlock and beat him to a pulp.
Late 80s, early 90s, Nolan was the man.
The man. Before we get to it, we have a couple of teacher emails. We're reading these every single show. You guys keep them coming to talk@ryanjesperson.com. Jill is clarifying. She says, I made pumpkin pie from scratch. She says you just clean it and roast it. And then scoop out the puree.
Yeah.
She says, I made condensed milk pumpkin pie only using nutmeg and cinnamon. She says she's not big on cloves. Marie says she made pumpkin pies. She says, I make them from my pumpkins all the time. She says, don't buy canned pumpkin. She says, I freeze my own pumpkin just like I freeze my own squash. She says, butternut squash is a great substitute for pumpkin. What about using squash like spaghetti squash in lieu of pasta noodles?
That's what I do.
That's one of the all-time culinary hacks.
Dude, you buy a spaghetti squash. Here's an easy recipe from Johnny Infamous. You cut it down the middle. You put a cinnamon stick and you put a little bit of butter in each one. That holds it. You throw it in the oven at like 450 for like 45 minutes. You take it out. You put it into a bowl, little olive oil. Put bolognese sauce on it. Put regular spaghetti sauce on it. It's ready right away.
Phenomenal.
It's just, people are going to scream, but I think it's just as good as having a big bowl of spaghetti. You get some garlic bread out. It's good to go.
And you keep your carbs down.
And
right?
it's better for you.
Dwayne says his dad once put fertilizer all over a potato crop. Says he and his brothers by the end of it were wondering what they were digging up. Says they got very large. If you're just joining us wondering what the hell we're talking about,
how do they do it?
Today's edition of Alberta Wins presented by Play Alberta.
I got you. Here it is.
So check out this news story. 1,368 pounds. 1,300, and I should be clear, 1,368 and a half pounds. Like let's not rob this guy of his incredible win here, but I will. And I'd also like to shout out the St. Albert Gazette. This is who we're referencing. We're referencing their reporting. And Johnny, you know what? I saw the byline here. You can even show their website if you want. But this, I was so excited to see this byline, not just because of the story, not just because Smoky Lake is celebrating 35 years of its annual pumpkin fair, but the journalist on this, the reporter reporter on this is one of the most diehard community supporting journalists. Like, this guy is a legend. Les Dunford is his name. And back in 2008, I was lucky enough to travel to Ethiopia with Les Dunford, and we worked together on a mini series that aired on City TV, and it just like filled my heart to see Les's name there on the byline covering this story.
But how do
they describe what they do here.
Okay,
they describe kind of how it comes to be.
Do they inject it with something?
Well,
or?
I don't think that you're like allowed to, like, are you I mean, this is kind of brings us back to the baseball bodies. You want to talk about juicing. You're talking about the cream and the clear.
I mean, there's got to be some sort of supplement they're giving this thing. It's not just water.
There were 38 pumpkin entries, ranging in weight from 27.5 pounds, which, like, that's not small.
No.
But, like, when you bring in your 27.5 pound pumpkin and then a guy brings in on a forklift or however he gets it in, 1,368.5 pounds, I don't know how that goes. But they had, like, just a wild, so he germinated. Here's what the winner did. So Don Cruz is the winner. Per the St. Albert Gazette and Les Dunford's reporting, shout out Les Dunford, he started this year's champion pumpkin, the winner did, Don Cruz, on March 28th. It germinated. So this was a seed on March 28th, John. It germinated on April 1st. That's our winner on the left. It's the second place fella who deserves a shout out as well on the right. And, so April 1st it germinates. He transplanted it April 9th and then pollinated it on June 6th.
Okay.
And so from start to weigh-in day, from seed to 1,368 pounds, it was 130 days.
What a bulk cycle.
Don actually, you know what I love about this? He says look at it's on a pallet. Obviously.
Could have gone a little bigger.
That's what he said. He said it probably could have been more, but he had some problems with his watering system. Yeah. Now he does he says it's not about the money, Cruz, bringing pumpkins to Smoky Lake. He does get a plaque. He wins $1,400, which, by the way,
$1 a pound,
which is hilarious. It's $1 a pound. Good quick math there by this show's technical director.
Oh, yeah, really?
But you know what's amazing? Here's for perspective. He says the $1,400 first place prize doesn't even cover his expenses.
Oh, no.
He says this is all about the personal challenge of growing an even bigger pumpkin every year. And he would like to one day surpass his Canadian pumpkin record, which he set 3 years ago.
This guy, the confidence on him could have gone bigger. I didn't really pay attention.
It was the watering.
Look at the for those of us watching on YouTube, and if you're listening to the audio later, come to YouTube or
you got to see the photo.
The stem of this thing, it looks like they used a chainsaw because it's just.
Well, they probably did.
Like, it's huge, and look at the pumpkins in the back that are all like second, third, fourth, whatever.
Those are like 400 pounds.
They're so much smaller though.
They're so much smaller, but those are like 400 pounds, the small ones, which is wild. So you may say, well, who shows up at this thing in Smoky Lake at the Nutrient Ag Center? It brings away folks from Tabor. Tabor knows a thing or two about ag.
Corn.
Tabor corn.
Love it.
I wonder if there's some commonality. I bet you someone in our live chat will have some insights onto growing corn versus pumpkins. Northern Alberta, Good Soil, Saskatchewan was in the house represented. And then they at the end of the weekend, the other big attraction here in Smoky Lake. I love how we're talking about this. Is the whole point of Alberta Wins, presented by Play Alberta, celebrating Alberta communities and the Alberta spirit. The pumpkin drop wraps up the weekend, and that's where they take large pumpkins and they drop them onto a car from 90 feet in the air, from 30 meters in the air onto a Volkswagen Beetle. And per Les's reporting, needless to say, he says it's all over in seconds, but once the pumpkin hits the car, there's not much left of either.
Oh, that poor Beetle, man.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Amazing. JJ bought a squash lately that looked like a pumpkin, says the farm grew a hybrid, looks like a pumpkin, tastes like a squash, says it's like the Indominus Rex of pumpkins. He says it wasn't good, but it was still a cool idea. So there you go. Erica says, I'm surprised that pumpkin doesn't break apart from its own weight. Mike says, you got to need a front end loader or something even to get that into the pickup bed. Can you imagine, though, like, you're unloading that thing onto the floor in Smoky Lake for the competition and you drop it and it smashes everywhere?
Oh, God. Well, it's the picture. It's like, look how lopsided it is. It had to grow like on its side, first of all. And it's clearly like, but what I would like to see is an artist come forward and be like, I'm going to turn this into
something.
The best jack-o'-lantern the world has ever seen.
Yes.
Put it up on its side.
Well, turn it into the jack-o'-lantern that you can crawl into.
Oh, yeah.
And stay
Get
a while.
photo in there. Stay a while.
Go in and have a pumpkin spice latte while you hang out by candlelight.
Yeah, that's like, you could literally put wheels on this and take Cinderella home from the ball.
Tracy is wondering, nice reference. That's incredible. Tracy says, what is it about exploding pumpkins? Like, why is that our instinct? I don't know. I'm with you, Tracy. It just is.
We always want to blow stuff up.
Crazy Fast Eddie is 100% correct. Says you need to get the pumpkin guy on Real Talk. I think maybe we do. Dwayne wonders if a farmer has a pumpkin that falls off their truck when they're driving, does it become a squash?
That's a dad joke.
That was pretty good.
Jesus.
That was pretty good.
The great pumpkin, Ryan Jesperson. Then next week on Real Talk.
No show can pivot from frivolous to serious like this one. And I don't want you to think that we're joking around about the teacher strike, because we're not. A moment of levity with the pumpkins. But this one here from Kaylee, who wrote in. Kaylee, and we're getting like, gosh, I keep saying this, Real Talkers, because it's true. My email inbox, our email inbox to talk@ryanjesperson.com hasn't seen action like this since Aloha Gate. Kaylee says, Jespo, Johnny, I'm writing to you both as an experienced educator who specifically chose Alberta's public education system. After graduating and training in Ontario in 2010, I moved here because Alberta was known for its competitive environment and its commitment to specialized student supports, a commitment evidenced by my swift hiring for my graduate expertise in developmental disabilities. That environment is now unrecognizable. Listen to this email. She says, I want to talk to you about the ethical collapse of support. The resources that were once routinely afforded to students across the spectrum of need, mild, moderate, and severe, have dwindled into non-existence. And what I witness daily is an ethical failure of the system. True inclusion, though never perfect, yields progress when properly resourced. And today we're stripped of the essential personnel needed even for our most severe cases, leaving a vast majority of mild to moderate learners to flounder without the targeted professional help that they require. She says, teachers are not quitters. We are creative problem solvers driven by a fundamental impulse to support and uplift every student. Yet the conditions that this government is allowing is making our job impossible. She says they're sinking in the classroom. Consider my grade 1 class last year, 29 students, 8 of them with these formal IPPs. We've been hearing about that, the individualized program plans, and numerous others with significant challenges, all supported by myself and a single EA, an educational assistant, with one student requiring constant one-on-one attention. It felt like the other 28 were left with me, just to manage instruction, differentiation, and crisis intervention. Like they're in grade 1, right? She says, I left work every day feeling like a failure. Imagine leaving your job every day feeling like a failure because I saw the need and I lacked the means to meet it. Burnt out is an understatement. Kaylee says, this isn't teaching. This is being handed a boat with a dozen leaks and only one hand to plug them. We are no longer paddling. We're sinking. As teachers, we're professionally and ethically bound by confidentiality, by standards that often prevent us from sharing the devastating reality of our classrooms with the public. But teachers are speaking out, like me, here, because enough is enough. She says our working conditions are our students' learning conditions. When we're drowning, our students are submerged. And it's time for systemic change. Reversing this trend of ethical neglect is long overdue. I urge this government to recognize this crisis and to act immediately. She says, by the way, I've listened to the Real Talk podcast since the very beginning, and I'm a true fan. Thanks for all your coverage on the strike and the lockout. Keep up the good work. That from Kaylee. We sure appreciate you as well. And I wanted to read this one as well from Northeast Calgary. K-6 public school, very complex student population. Around half of the students are English language learners, a student who's a refugee, several of them with those IPPs, ranging from autism spectrum disorder, receptive language disorders. She says, I want to express how much I appreciate Real Talk's coverage on the Alberta teachers' strike. She says, every year I teach has been more challenging than the last. She says, and it inspired me to write this poem. She says, if you think you might want to share it on the show, please feel free to do so. And obviously we're going to, Johnny. So this is an Alberta teacher's poem about the state of public education from a teacher down in Calgary. She says, in a chronically underfunded education system I work, where I'm told to make do by a government clerk. They've not been in my classroom nor understand what's at stake, yet they insist to the public a generous offer they make. 3,000 teachers may sound like a lot, but with over 2,000 schools, it simply is not. Inclusion in theory, a beautiful thing, but without funding and supports, utter chaos it brings. Complex learners populate school halls, and the Premier commands, teach me with your back against the wall. No matter I'm not trained in special ed, so what if my classroom has become a place that I dread? Kids scream in my face and claw at their peers. Many can't read, write, or add numbers, despite schooling for years. I still try my best and I give it my all, but the cracks become chasms when students rapidly fall. Parents advocate and plead, please catch them up, but I can't access supports or intervention needed to back this train up. Instead, government chooses to funnel public funds to private schools, so the rich become richer, and I expected to stand by and follow the rules. But I'm a teacher, and for students, I speak. Stop cutting corners in ed, purposefully making it weak. Stop running your mouth. Instead, volunteer in my class. I wonder how you'll respond when a student asks for support, wiping their earth. You created this mess. You need to fix it now. This broken, battered public education system is something we will no longer allow. How about that? A poem, an original submitted to Real Talk by a Calgary teacher. We appreciate that. And we want to reiterate that you can have your voice heard on this, Alberta's #1 talk show, by sending us an email to talk@ryanjesperson.com or by keeping the comments happening well after our live stream ends on our YouTube episodes. We try to respond to as many of those YouTube comments as we possibly can. Before we wrap, I wanted to make sure that you saw our Tuesday feature. That's Echoes of the Alex, presented by our friends at the Royal Alexandra Hospital Foundation. It's a huge year that they're celebrating, 125 years of the Royal Alexandra Hospital, and with your help, the incredible care can continue at this legacy location. The Royal Alexandra Hospital has been integral to stories impacting Albertans and Canadians outside of our Prairie province for a century and a quarter, and those echoes of the Alex will continue. This week it was the story of Brent Kelland, a retired paramedic who found himself on the other side of the glass undergoing emergency cardiac care. He's now back on his skis with a reiterated understanding, of course, after a career in healthcare, of the importance of the Royal Alexandra Hospital Foundation, and a reminder, if you have a story, your own echo of the Alex, so to speak, we'd love to hear it, and you can always show your support with either a one-time gift or a monthly gift by visiting their website, and you can find that. We link to it in the show notes. The Royal Alexandra Hospital Foundation, truly doing remarkable work. That's givetoRoyalAlex.org. As we wrap this episode of the show, and thank you for joining us, I want to let you know, coming up tomorrow, author Marcelo DeCintio is going to take us into his new book on migrant workers, temporary foreign workers. That's something else paramount when you talk about Canadian businesses, when you're talking about immigration policy. Marcelo's done a deep dive. And then Marnie Panis and Senator Paula Simons on changes to the U.S.-Canada border arrangement that's discriminatory to some Canadians. We'll find out how. We'll talk to you then.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks. General Manager Katie Cook-Chivers. Account Coordinator Lawrence Derlego. Human Resources Lena Shepard. Website Design Mike Johnston. Voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Member Emerita Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjasperson.com.